We are from A Plus Discourse Analysis Group. We welcome the opportunity to present our findings and hope they will be insightful. We thank Dr. Sofi for his guidance and support during this course. We also apologize for the technical difficulties if there is any. I'm Kogilam and my group members are Ku Huiling and Raymond. We have divided this presentation into 5 parts which consist of cohesion, pragmatic, personality, discourse schemata, and content analysis. We are required to record a conversation. Here, we chose to record an interview of someone who speaks in multi languages and analyze using discourse analysis. First, let's look into questions posed. We have prepared a questions to make the interview more thought-provoking. In the first question, the respondent briefly introduces himself. Later, we ask him the language he communicates at home and with his friends. Since he speaks English fluently, we wanted to know what makes him good in English while his first language is Tamil. The next question was which language dominates in him and why. We also wanted to know whether the difference affects his language skills or not. Next, was it easy for him to switch languages when he speaks with mixed people? And final question was about the attitudes on the environment about switching between languages. Well, now let's look into some brief introduction about our respondent. His name is Mr. Vinodan Ramasamy, teaching English in a primary school in Petaling Jaya. He is a graduate and has been teaching for the past 16 years now. The respondent speaks Tamil at home as it is his mother tongue. He also mentioned that most of his family members only understand and speaks Tamil. When it comes to his relatives and friends, he often speaks in English and with little Malay. He uses English most of the time as it is easy and understood by many. Now let's look into what are the topics covered. First, we will be talking about cohesion, then about pragmatic, followed by personality and discourse schemata, and then finally we'll be discussing content analysis and including conclusion. Now let's welcome Ms. Hui to present the introduction of our assignment.
We use language as a tool to communicate effectively in our daily routines with the people around us. As human beings, we are all designed to communicate and interact with one another, which form societies and communities in the world. Though we are living in a culture where it is very different and very special in their own ways, even in different languages, we will always be able to find a common ground to come together, such as using international language, English, to build our connection and relationships. And even our body language does tell a message through by itself. We all have our intentions and interpretation in our conversation, which reveals our backgrounds and our identities. Discourse is how we think, we speak, how we act and respond to each other when we are conversing, whether it is a spoken or written form. We pick up words when we were infants, when we were babies, and to meet our specific needs, and as we grow older, we use it to communicate with one another, to express ourselves, and also to understand the world that we are living in together with others. We use formal and informal terms in languages to show respect and in our social status in the communities. As we are analyzing this interview through discourse analysis, it enables us to reflect upon the usage of different segments in schemata, in the choices of words, and how do we use it to determine the purpose and the intention of another person, and also to solve problems wherever we go. Every structure and line and words that we use, that we utter, brings intention and motives that we want to express to others.
Now let's welcome Mr. Raymond to present on cohesion.
Cohesion is an important concept in discourse analysis. In text construction, cohesion is a necessary condition for the formation of coherence. Lexical cohesion is one of the important cohesive means of textual cohesion, and it plays a fundamental and key roles in achieving textual coherence. We deeply analyze the vocabulary cohesive methods used in dialogue of Mr. Vinnock and Ms. Kogi, and explore the stylistic function of various vocabulary cohesive methods, aiming to help readers grasp the wholeness and coherence of the dialogue. Discourse is a natural language that is not completely constrained by sentence grammar and express complete semantic in certain contexts. Discourse is a semantic unit and has not formal restraint mechanism, but the discourse is embodied by formal characteristics, so the cohesive mechanism in the discourse has become one of the important signs of the discourse. Cohesion is a semantic concept which refers to the meaning relationship that form a text. Cohesion occurs when the interpretation of the meaning of component in the text depends on the interpretation of another component. Cohesion can not only provide continuity for the narrative of the text, it also constitutes a semantic whole as a very important semantic concept. Cohesion reflects the semantic relationship between the linguistic component of a text. The study of cohesion is not only helpful for discourse analysis, but also helps realize the coherence and wholeness of the discourse. We have done lexical coherence in text analysis of dialogue of Mr. Vinnock and Miss Kogi. To try to explore the lexical cohesive means of this dialogue and its stylistic function in the text. In the text, a vocabulary item refers back to another vocabulary item with the same reference. We call this phenomenon as recurrence. Therefore, the most direct way of lexical coherence is the word with the same semantic and the same form appear repeatedly in the text. The recurring item mainly refer to the word and phrases that appear repeatedly in the text. The repeated use of vocabulary can continuously highlight the key point, thereby strengthening the theme and making the text coherent. Due to the abundant English etymology, related words tend to appear in different forms in the same text. The recurrence of synonym and similar words mainly refers to the correspondence between different terms with the same or similar meanings. These words appear in different forms in the same chapter to form recurring relationship of words. In the text, there is a certain semantic connection between synonyms, and they also correspond to each other, which plays a coherent and mutual reference to the text. The antonym relationship of the word refers to the opposite, relative, and contradictory relationship between the terms, which represent words of varying degree of nature. Specifically, it First, to the semantically hierarchical part of speech relationship with different degrees, and the level of opposite relationship is reflected between the two poles of the vocabulary. The antonymous relationship between words can form a strong contrast between terms with opposite meaning and establish a cohesive meaning in the two contrasts, thereby promoting the cohesion of the text and emphasizing the theme. The upper sense word and lower sense word are two relative concepts, embodying the relationship between inclusion. The meaning of upper meaning are general and abstract, while lower meaning express more specific meaning. If above meaning is animal, the below meaning can be cat, horse, and cow, etc. The upper and lower meaning words are connected in the text through inclusion. Relationship in meaning of word in some specific context. The use of upper and lower meaning in text cohesion is more natural, smooth, and colorful than repetition. In the nutshell, lexical cohesion is one of the important means of text cohesion and coherence. We have analyzed the various lexical cohesive methods used in dialogue of Mr. Vinod and Ms. Colgate. Lexical cohesion occupies a central position in the semantic of the text, and it is a series of vital lexical ties. It plays a fundamental key role in strengthening the theme of the text and achieving the coherence of the text. We have analyzed the lexical cohesive skills of dialogue of Mr. Vinod and Ms. Colgate to clarify the meaning of various lexical cohesive devices in the construction and their stylistic function. This will help us to understand the dialogue in depth, grasp the wholeness of the dialogue, and the other true communicative intention. At the same time, such discourse analysis can help us correctly identify and use lexical cohesive device in English discourse and improve discourse analysis ability. In addition, this will greatly help us apply the cohesion in text analysis of text linguistics to the practical foreign language teaching and learning. Thank you.
One of the subtopics that we have analyzed would be personality. The first element would be this interviewee uses proper structure of sentences in his explanations and answers. He's able to understand and answer in appropriate ways according to what has been asked. He also reveals his professionality as an educator, as he also shared about his family background and his understanding of the range of knowledge acquired in the process of learning the English language. He also shared in a very humble and friendly way, as throughout the interview, he even explained the ideas on how to pick up the English language in a very not demanding way, where he suggests the reading as one of the key methods to master the English language. At certain times, he uses informal Manglish such as la to show his comfortable and also confidence in answering questions being asked to him. He is also a very experienced teacher. He knows how to explain on how to improve the language, and he also showed appreciation to other languages as well. He portrays confidence in knowing what he's good at, and he is also observant through his interviews, showing that he knows the various cultures of Malaysians, where we always do code switching when we speak to one another in various places. He also shared his belief, and he uses proper usage of terminology in his explanation. It was understood that the factors for speaking English, for him to speak in English, were due to the demand of work and also the society that we live in. Discourse schemata is a kind of structure where there's a group of text forms that is categorized by the variety of the text. The various kinds of discourse schemata are narrative, expository, procedural, and hortatory discourses. And we are using these various kinds of schemata to analyze the recorded conversation in the transcript. So the first one would be narrative discourse, where the interviewee was explaining the examples of the usage of English and Tamil language from home. He also shared the usage of other languages using examples of stories in a narrative form, such as a situation where he observed from a mama store. Secondly, expository discourse, where the interviewee enlightened us with his explanation of the languages that he knows, which is English, mainly English, which he acquired, and also he also can speak Tamil as well. And he mentioned and portrays love for the languages that he knows, and also the importance and the beauty of other languages as well. Moving on, procedural discourse. The interviewee shares ways of how we Malaysians use various languages to communicate with our different cultures and languages. We are able to communicate with one another, and it is normal and it's a common situation where everyone code switching and also sometimes changes the words that they use when they meet different people depending on the situations and the age group and also the ethnic communities. And lastly, hortatory discourse. There wasn't a strong demand or command from the interviewee because he's a very humble man, as he did suggest ideas on how to acquire English language, which he truly believes that it will be effective to acquire the language, especially through reading.
Next, let's look at the notions that underpin the content analysis of this interview. In this section, we analyzed variation in interview related to the context, participants' interpretation, interpretative repertoire identification, and the statement and absences in discourse. Let us analyze the study of interview variation in relation to the context. There are 2 points to consider from the retrieved data. Extract 1 demonstrates on how the question is worded within the framework of the interview's focus on good English proficiency in non-English languages. The interviewee believes that although learning English may seem tough, with enough practice and determination, it is possible to speak English fluently. Such summary solutions are difficult to analyze since reliability arises as a result of the interview rather than as a feature of the participant's speech. The responses' contextual character and cultural logics are neglected here. However, each segment of the interview convincingly portrays one position as the participant's authentic, fundamental perspective on the issue at hand, together with compelling, persuasive statement in favor of that view. If we see in extract 2, the interviewee emphasizes the need of language switching while communicating with diverse groups. He added that Malaysians always converse in Bahasa Roja, a language that combines Malay, English, Tamil, and Chinese, which simplifies interactions. When the interviewer probed questions about the environment, the issue of the language switching was addressed. He claimed that people's attitude changes as they switch their language. Aside from that, they adopt a different persona than the native speakers. The first aspect in content analysis is participants' interpretation. To reduce biasness, a set of criteria has been developed for handling interview participants politely. In this context, the interviewees are identified as students, teenagers, or respondents. The section uses the term within subject design and between subject design interchangeably. Here, the interviewee is referred to as respondent for the analysis purposes. The interviewee must be above 18 and provide informed consent before participating in an interview. It is important that the language and sentence structure are professional. Here, the interviewer should not interpret the participants in passive form, which implies action. When addressing the participant in the study, the interviewer should address as the subject completed the study rather than the subject work conducted, which is in passive form. It is also typical to assume that the interview topic, for example, in this interview, it's about language. Language is a factual thing about which many people have differing viewpoints and experiences. Using analytical discourse, the interviewer abandons the concept that there is just one right explanation of the respondent's thought and actions were taken into account. Interview discourse is by defining interpretative work. It is reflective, theoretical, contextual, and textual since the subject, which is language, in this case, is abstract and ideal. When addressing language, a participant offers more than a neutral explanation and perspective. As we can see, the participant creates a language, words like Bahasa Roja or reenacting, with an analysis using his own example. Interview discourse specifies the character and content of languages. Not only that, it also expresses speakers' thoughts on certain formulations and context-dependent version of language. The third aspect in content analysis is the interpretative repertoire identification. Analyzing interpretative repertoire is comparable to putting together a jigsaw puzzle. Interviews are not seen as stories with a clearly defined theme or meaning. Variations surrounded by consistent and interpretive repertoire are perceived as contradictions in participants' perspective in discourse analysis. Now, here we only focus on two repertoires. They are repertoire of stigmatizing multilingualism and professionalism repertoire. Now, let's see how multilingualism found in the interview. As you can see, Speaker 2 begins his interview on multilingualism by describing how Malaysians communicate in Malay, Tamil, Chinese, and English. As you can see previously, Speaker 2 declared himself as a Tamil speaker before identifying himself as a multilingual. For example, in his interview, he said that as a Malaysian Indian, I am multilingual in Tamil and Malay. However, I communicate in English widely as most of my friends are proficient in English. By citing his Tamil ethnicity, he declares that he is a multilingual individual. Now let's see what is professionalism repertoire. Before we look into what is a professionalism repertoire, let's what is professionalism is. Professionalism is defined as the manner in which an individual acts, behaves, and performs in certain contexts. It results in job advancement, a positive reputation, and a commitment to excellence. If you observe carefully, the interviewer and the interviewee both approached the interview professionally. It is possible to distinguish a limited point of view from which the interview subject, style, and topics are selected to analyze professionalism repertoire. Last but not least, the final aspect of content analysis is the statement and absences in discourse. It serves as a basic and implicit starting point for a certain kind of interaction. The statements in a discourse frame can restrict the participant's perspective. Statements restricting effect leads in absences. Some valid interpretation or explanation are not expressed or even considered. For example, if you see speaker 1 post a question, have any of these differences had an impact on your language skills? The speaker 2 responded, I never felt confident in communicating in Malay and often avoid it in most of the time. Here, the respondent might have elaborated on the consequences and provided a solution in depth. He instead provided a brief explanation of how he avoids using Malay language.
Dear Dr. Muhammad Sofi and fellow classmates, in conclusion, discourse coherence is a highly complex issue. The coherence of a text depends on the speaker's premise and the recipient's common knowledge. Our discourse analysis provides a valuable experience on how to conduct discourse analysis from various aspects and lay a good foundation for the subsequent discourse analysis. It assists in comprehending the discourse, coherence, and wholeness. This study aims to decode several lexical coherent linguistic features and content analysis. Examples are the narrative, explanatory, procedural, and hortatory speech schemata. Due to the diversity of participant voices, a collection of comparable participant statements cannot be interpreted as literally representative of social behavior. All components of discourse must comply with the foundation for addressing interview participants responsively. Respect the interview's assistant agency. This possibility will assist the interviewer in conveying their regard for the subjects. The interviewee discourse interpret contemporary event. It is introspective, theoretical, contextual, and textual because the subject language is an abstract, idealized notion everyone encountered. Interview replies can vary throughout the interview session. Use standard interpretive tool differently. The interview topic, the tone of the talk, and the use of the logical and consistent terminology system all indicate the existence of the repertoire. A discourse governs an interview concern, approach, and the themes. It limits the subject matter interpretation and provide a particular point of view from which it is dealt with. The study of discourse comprises the selection, connection, and organization of ideas included within discourse. Thank you very much.